Hi everybody, I'm just following up on the blog post that we did earlier on. We actually did it yesterday and we got a little bit of feedback about it that people were happy. There was a lot of information in it with regard to resizing and exporting your images correctly for the web. So I decided that I'd do a video tutorial with something similar just to show you and back up what was said in the blog post so that you're a little bit more familiar. It might be easier than following just those screenshots. It might be easier to see the video itself. So what I've done here is I've opened a stock image that we purchased, and this stock image was used specifically to allow us to use it on our YouTube background. You've probably seen it on our Facebook page. You may potentially have seen it on one of our blog posts on our blog on avantech.ie. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to resize it to be used as a YouTube background image. So what we're going to do is we're going to resize the image first, then we're going to see what way that would affect things, and then we're going to see how we export with the appropriate image quality and image settings for the web. So initially I've opened the image here. The image, if I go and look at the image size, the image is 4,500 pixels wide by 3,000 pixels tall. Okay, so this is way too large. The recommended size for a YouTube background is 2,560 wide by 1440 high. Okay, now you'll notice here there's a little lock icon, and this little lock icon is to allow us to constrain the proportions of the image. What does that mean? Well, if I untick it here, you'll see that the lock icon disappears. And if I was to change this to 4,000, you'll notice that the 3,000 does not actually alter. Constrained proportions allows us to resize both proportionately. So if we reduce the width by a specific amount, the height will reduce by a proportionate amount. So in this case, it's actually 1.5 times as wide as it is tall. So if we were to reduce it to 3,000, it will reduce the height to 2,000. Okay, so we're essentially taking a third away. This is not what we want to do. We want to reduce it to 2560. Sorry, apologies. I deleted everything, one of the joys. So I've changed the width to be 2560, but you'll notice that the height is 1707. Now, what some people might do here is they might uncheck the constraint proportions, and what they might do is they might reduce the height to 1440. If we do that, what we're essentially doing is we're squashing the image, and things are going to look skewed. We don't want to do that because it's going to look bad. What we're going to do is we're going to resize it this way, and I'm going to click OK here. There it is, but it's 2560 by 1707. That's not what we want. What we want to do is we want to reduce the height to 1440. If I do that, as I mentioned before, it will squash things. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the canvas size. What is the canvas size? Well, essentially what it's going to allow us to do is it's similar to using a crop tool. I could have gone over here and used the crop tool and drawn that and resized it to exact dimensions that I wanted to. But what I'm going to do is use the canvas size. The width is the correct amount. The height, I want it to be 1440. Okay? It automatically sets the anchor point to the center. What's the anchor point to the center? Well, in this case, what it means is it's going to, we've 1707 and we've set it to 1440. So there's just under 300 pixels we're removing from the height. What it will do is it will essentially divide that by 2, and it will remove an equal amount from the top and the bottom. We don't want to do that. If we were to anchor it to the bottom, it would mean that the image would be anchored here, and those almost 300 pixels would be removed from the top. What we want to do, though, is we want to anchor it to the top so that we have this section here, and we're removing the bottom bit. We're removing 300 pixels, give or take, from the bottom section. Similarly, if we were changing the width of it, we could anchor it left, we could anchor it right. We can also anchor top left, top right, bottom left, whatever we want to do. In this case, it's the top we're trying to anchor it to, and we're trying to crop those pixels from the bottom of the image. If I click OK, there we have it. It's after cropping those pixels from the bottom of the image. Okay? it might be a little bit counterintuitive that you might say you want to anchor it to the bottom because that's what you're trying to remove, but that's not the case. Okay. Now, the image is resized. That's only one step. This is the image in itself, 2560 by 1440. Okay, this is it. We're zoomed in, or sorry, zoomed out at 25%. You'll see that up here. I can zoom to 100% and you'll see the image is much larger, but I'm going to bring it back to 25% for what we're doing here. Now, we have an optimized panel on the right-hand side. The optimized panel allows us to choose a specific type of image. Some of these for the web, some of them not for the web. But we can still select them and we can change them and set particular settings. So I'll leave it at JPEG for the moment. You'll see the default here is 99% JPEG quality with a selective quality and a smoothing. I'm not going to get into all these details. There's no point. That's not the purpose of this video. But 99%, it doesn't show us what the file size is going to be. Now, the file size is going to be just short of 3 megabytes for that, which is a very, very large file size as a background image. 3 megabytes, if somebody doesn't have a particularly good broadband connection, that could take quite a while to download. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and have a look at the image preview section as opposed to just setting the optimize options here and exporting. We can set it to some preset defaults. PNG32, I've mentioned it in the blog article, JPEG, GIF, different settings, the likes of a GIF WebSnap 256 colors. I'll look at that in the export preview, the image preview. The GIF Web 216 is restricting the GIF file type, but it's restricting it to the WebSafe palette. The WebSafe palette was 256 colors that a good few years ago we had to restrict our images to a lot of the time because a lot of the older web browsers did not support millions of colors, and as a result we had to do that. You're lucky you don't really have to worry about that anymore, but the option is still there. So I'm not going to worry about this optimized panel, but if I was to change my settings here, I would go into File and I would go to Export, and that would just give me the option to export the image and save it to my desktop, to my documents, whatever it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go one below it and I'm going to go to the image preview. Now, the image preview shows me the image and it shows me it's set at the default settings. Here it is. The settings in the optimized panel. And it's a JPEG 99% quality. Millions of colors, 2,971.93 kilobytes, which is just short of 3 megabytes. It shows you here it would take 477 seconds to download on a 56 kilobit per second modem. We don't really worry about this anymore. A 56 kilobit per second modem, for those of you who remember the days, will shudder at the thought of it. For those of you who don't, you know, at least you didn't have to worry about this kind of thing. But what it does allow us to do is it does allow us to extrapolate out how long it would take to download on a specific broadband connection. Okay? 90% quality, it's only showing us one image and giving us the option. In the left-hand side, we can go through and set our optimize options, change the quality on the slider, all these different options. If I set it to 100%, it goes up to just over 4 megabytes. That 1% gives us an additional megabyte plus on the file size. Okay? Now, we also have the option here, it's something in Fireworks, that we have an option to click to set the file to a specific file size. And what it will do is if I set that to 200 kilobytes, 200 kilobytes, what it will do is it will set the JPEG quality appropriately to set it out at that size. That's not something that I want to do. It's something that you may be restricted on a file size in the future. If you are, then you can use that feature. What we're going to do down here is you'll notice that in the tool panel here, we're looking at one image. You can also look at 2 images, which splits it, top and bottom, or 4. It's the 4 images that I want to look at because I can set each of these to a separate image, quality, export settings, and I can see what the difference in size and quality is going to be. So, if I go to the JPEG, the top left, it's 100% quality. It's 4,004 kilobytes. I'm going to go top right, and I'm going to set this to one of the defaults, which is a better quality JPEG at 80% quality, which drops the file size to 880 kilobytes. Okay? If I go bottom left, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it to a JPEG smaller file. A JPEG smaller file will drop it to 60% quality. 60% quality drops it to 377 kilobytes. Now, is there a difference in quality there? We can see here in this section that it's much blurrier, okay? Do we want to lose that quality? Does it sacrifice the overall quality of the image? That's for you to decide. I'll come back and change this in a minute to a GIF, just to see the difference again. But in the bottom right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to a PNG 32. I mentioned the PNG in the blog post, and the PNG 32 bit allows us to have 24 bits for the millions of colors and 8 bits for the alpha channel. The alpha channel is effectively transparency. Okay, so we still have the same as a PNG 24, but we have an additional 8 bits to allow us to have transparent areas in the image. Use this when you need transparent areas in the image. For this image, we don't need that. So I'm going to go over to the left-hand panel and I'm going to change it to an 8-bit initially. An 8-bit PNG is 8 bits. It's 256 colors. That's it, a maximum of 256 colors, and it will set it to an adaptive palette. Okay, one thing I haven't mentioned here is that I can click and drag, and when I click and drag on the image, it will actually move all of them the same, so that I'm looking at the same part of the image every time. Okay, to look at the difference in quality. Now, the PNG is higher quality in a 256 color PNG, but look at the difference in file size. It's 2,187 kilobytes. So it's not always going to be the best option because it's less colors that it's going to be smaller. Let's change it to a 24-bit PNG, which allows us our millions of colors. It's now gone to nearly 7 megabytes in size. So what we can see from here at the moment is that either of the JPEGs are certainly the better option. Now, I said I was going to change this one. I won't. We know we're not going to export as 100% JPEG quality because the file size is too large. What I'll do is I'll go into this one, and what we'll do is we'll change it to a GIF, okay? And we're going to change it to a GIF with an adaptive palette. This is similar to the PNG 8-bit, but it's a GIF image. And the file size is 2.1 megabytes. It's still very, very large. What do we see from this? We see that the JPEG 60% quality is a little bit blurry. We can see it's a little bit more blurry than the 80% quality. The 80% quality, to be honest, is very good. It's a large background image. Are we going to be happy with 880 kilobytes? I'm not sure. Perhaps we'll just drop it a little bit. Perhaps we'll drop it to 70 and we'll go halfway in between the two. There we go. Let's drop it to 70. Okay, that's 700 kilobytes. It's sharper than the other one. It's not as sharp as the PNG, but the file size is significantly smaller. So the file size is 600K. Okay, that's going to be quite quick to download as a background image. So as a result, that's what I'm going to go with. Depending on which one of these I've clicked on and selected is going to decide when I click my export button what I'm actually going to save that as. If I click export, it's going to ask me to save my image. Generally speaking, I save it to my desktop because with the newer content management systems, I can just drag and drop from my desktop into the media uploader, specifically for the likes of Magento, WordPress, any of these, I can just click and drag it in. So it's handy to have it on my desktop. I would be exporting this as a 70% JPEG quality for just under 600 kilobytes, which is very, very good for this size of image. I hope this video was beneficial to you. I hope you found it interesting. And who knows, when I get feedback from you, I may do a series of these focusing on specific areas. If people want to know the way the bits work, the bit levels on a PNG 8-bit, a 24-bit, a 32-bit, we could be talking binary and working out exactly how that kind of thing works. I don't think it's something that people will be hugely interested in, but I could be wrong. So whatever you think of it, let us know. Thanks for watching. This is Brian of Avantech, and I hope that if you're interested in this, you'll let us know either on Twitter, on Facebook, or on the YouTube channel here. Thanks very much. Cheers.